Hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of DLTV on the Fringe here at DigiCon 15. We have some lovely superstar guests with us today. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Donna Gron from ACU.
Anthony Speranza, St. Mark's Stingley.
And Narissa Long from Campbell's Creek Primary.
Award winner. Check out the jacket. Very exciting.
Making it happen.
Yay! So we've just come from, well, most of us, Anthony's amazing session on all about disruptive thinking in education. And it was really another one of those sessions that kind of challenged us to go outside of our comfort zone. And you admitted straight away you were outside of your comfort zone because you didn't think this was an area you were an expert in, but maybe you don't have to be an expert in it.
Maybe we don't, yeah.
Yeah, and you set forward a few kind of challenges and provided some really interesting examples on how technology is disrupting the rest of the world. But what's your thoughts on how disruptive it can be to education?
Well, my thoughts are that we almost need to be thinking about how we're disrupting ourselves before we then have an impact on our schools. And what's very obvious is that the world is changing very rapidly, but it just sometimes feels like education isn't really moving that far forward. And whilst in our own schools, we can see that immediate impact and we can connect with colleagues that are having that impact. But for me, education really just hasn't hit that tipping point. We can't really guarantee that students are being prepared in every single school, in front of every single teacher, in front of every single faculty member. And so to me, we need some sort of disruption in terms of how we're thinking, in terms of how we're applying something into our schools to get it happening so that we reach that tipping point, so that we break that.
School.
Sorry?
The Uber of school.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to be the Uber of school or the Airbnb of school or whatever it is. So really, I think it's about breaking that status quo because we can fall into compliance, we can fall into routine, and we've inherited a system that really once upon a time served its purpose really well, but in today's day and age, that traditional structures, they just don't work.
Yeah. And
I was just thinking about the Uber of school because Uber didn't actually take over the whole of the world immediately.
they didn't mean to. It wasn't we're going to take down, transport.
But they didn't do it in every state, in every country.
No.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Started small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that we probably can take a bit from
There's a
looking
message
at
in there. Yeah.
Also
brave.
think that really, if you look at the taxi industry, they could have come up with that. They could have come up with a better way of providing a service to their customers, but they didn't. So it's almost like if you don't disrupt, then you become disrupted yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't
And
that
someone else
Kodak?
takes over.
Isn't that the...
It's exactly what happened with Kodak. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that what's happening with the kids in the classrooms? We're seeing so many more kids that are being disruptive because the system doesn't suit.
Yeah.
And so they're disrupting, and we need to react to that by disrupting ourselves and by changing what needs to be changed.
And you also, Anthony, shared about your moonshot project that started at the Google Academy. And you also looked at, there were 4 areas you thought really needed a bit of a shake-up. And that was, let's see how I go, the structures and schedules. So things like the timetable, student groupings, how we group students together, how we organise staff. Often we're in discrete staff rooms based by discipline or, just in my classroom, and you don't get that opportunity to converse and network with others. And the last one was the spaces in which learning occurs. Yes.
Yes.
No, done.
Yeah, excellent. Obviously communicated it very effectively.
Yes,
Great
I like
comprehension.
graphic. Lovely use of visual imagery during your presentation
Thank
as well. Yeah, so how are you going about tackling that, at least from a thinking perspective?
Sure. My thinking at the moment is very messy. It's very deep. It's taking me into all sorts of different directions. And today's presentation really, I guess, was a synthesis of what I've discovered so far, which in some ways, I'm always sort of a little bit harsh on myself in terms of my actions and things like that. But in some ways, I sort of think, oh, well, it's not terribly too much at the moment. But I do realise, stepping back, when both Narissa and I were at that Google Teacher Academy, it was in October or September last year. And my thinking at the moment has just sort of gone off in this amazing direction in the last couple of months. So I'm still really grappling with the complex, I call it a conundrum at hand. But I'm also really worried that if people like myself or anybody, we do too much thinking about it, and we need to really step out and just take the
what
action.
do we do?
You know, so it is, well, it is all about taking those risks.
And how do we get outside of our comfort zone? Maybe our comfort zone is our internal thought processes and people that join us in that thinking part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well.
Yeah.
One of the things you showed was a video all about educational change and how to embrace it. But the point that you made was there weren't any teachers involved in that. And that led the lovely Donna to come up with a suggestion. Do you want to share what that was?
Yeah, so I think that with the forces that we have at DLTV and across Australia.
Of course, those Queenslanders.
The Queenslanders and in all of the other states, we've got the teachers to make that video.
Yeah.
So we've got the teachers with the ideas, we've got the quality, we all know how to make a video.
Yeah.
So, I don't see why we can't put our own video together.
Yep.
Anthony's question was, how do we get it out there? And I think that's tricky. But, the social networking that's developed throughout our associations in Australia, there's strong social networking across not just the country, but the world. So I think we can get it out.
Can I share a thought that literally, to be honest, has just come into my head? Just you standing here. I know this, mate. Literally just came to my head. And after hearing what you're saying, and whilst that video was very selective, and chosen for a particular purpose, like it's a great video, and yes, it doesn't have any teachers. We know there are teachers making noise, and we can see them a lot on social media. And my comment to you in the session was that is anybody else listening to us? And maybe some people are, maybe it's not. And the problem about this disruptive thinking that I've got is really about amplifying it. If we can make it louder, if we can make it more obvious, maybe we hit that tipping point. Does it need to start with when we ask people to contribute to a video like this? Does it need to start with questions around, for example, what is school? Because I know you asked that, and does that create the urgency? If you get people to really stipulate what they believe, people at this conference after these 2 days, what they think school needs to be, then you can almost use that as a catalyst to say, okay, well, is school really reflecting what we are all believing in?
It's that what works and what doesn't work. And that can be the starting point.
That was the question, because I'd asked people recently on Twitter what the purpose of education was. And it was interesting because only 2 people responded with their own idea. So I'd spoken to Anthony about the concept that it seems that thousands of people go to work every day and we don't know what the purpose of our work is, which is quite scary. Because how do we know if we're doing a good job? We don't even know what the purpose is. So but it was then in the Twitter chat, we had a discussion about different people have a different idea on what the purpose is depending on where they're from. So a business leader might say the purpose of education is to prepare kids for the working world, whereas a primary teacher might say something different. So that's
that love of learning.
Huge discussion to have to really work out. What do we need to be doing in schools? Are we meeting the purpose? Well, at the moment we're not, because we don't even know what the purpose is.
Yeah, defining that purpose and understanding what it could be. Well, thanks, guys. I know there's even more sessions to get to, and we're now running late, but this moment was just beautiful. And thank you for sharing your thinking. I'd like to formally invite you to join Roland and I for another ACC-ELN hangout at a future point, and maybe we can help refine, discuss, build those ideas, and get those video ideas of teacher voice happening.
Yes, that's great.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Brenda.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, see ya.